Good morning, everyone. So, we are here with Shri Ashok Maridas ji, who is a national office bearer for Jawahar Bal Manch, and he's also been an office bearer previously with AIPC, which is the All India Professionals Congress. So, warm welcome to him, and thank you so much, Ashok ji, for agreeing to have this very interesting conversation today. Over to you.
Good morning, and let me begin by congratulating you on completing 5 years uh, as a political activist. And thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be able to converse with you, to understand your journey. And first 5 years as a professional, as a woman, being in politics can be very, very interesting to know, and can be very inspiring as a story. So this is what we intend to do today. And should I begin asking, or are we waiting for people to join?
No, let's start. More people will
Okay.
come in.
So tell us a bit about yourself as a person, as a professional, and also tell us what made you join political activism. And yeah, please begin.
So I come from a corporate background where I did my masters in international business management. I specialized in marketing and HR. I worked with a German company called Putzmeister. Then I had two startups. One of them was a marketing consultancy. So I was always interested in politics. I was an ardent, regular follower of the political developments in our country because I've done my BA in public administration. So there's that natural interest in politics. But then I had absolutely no plans of ever joining politics. So it was a sudden happening. I shocked and surprised a lot of people around me, and I also shocked myself in the process. Um, because suddenly I realized that to 2014 onwards, once the BJP regime came into power, and in 2019 they completed 5 years. Uh, in those first 5 years itself, the erosion of our constitutional values, the erosion in the public uh, domain of what the narrative is and how people are interacting with each other, even politically, that deteriorated so badly that I felt that we are actually on a racetrack towards an abyss where our country is going to get destroyed. And even as a business owner, I started seeing the economic impact of uh, you know the horrible policies and the legislative actions taken by the Modi regime, and how it was affecting people around me who were business owners and the public at large. So that became the fundamental reason for me to join politics. And a more personal reason was that since I belong to Goa, uh, we've always had a very interesting um, culture, which is very communally harmonious. And we've never even bothered ever asking that who belongs to what religion, to what caste. And we've always coexisted very beautifully, very peacefully. So to see that getting destroyed, to see that getting affected, hurt me personally. So, in a nutshell, this is why I decided to join politics and do something about what I was seeing around me.
What we notice generally among young professionals like you is that generally very apathetic towards politics and very apprehensive,
Hmm.
very suspicious. Yeah. And this holds good by and large. And obviously, the reasons that you mentioned were compelling enough to break that
Hmm.
and actually join and start contributing. So, tell us a little more about the scenario in Goa and the country in
Hmm.
general. And what were those compelling reasons that made a young professional like you a successful professional at what you were doing, uh, to break those the general perceptions and actually say, no, I'm going to take a leap into this. And yeah, please tell us those conditions
No,
and
you're
which.
absolutely correct. For any person outside the political sphere, especially young professionals, and especially on top of that, as a woman, politics comes across as a very prohibitive space. Uh, some, a field of work where penetrating or making headway into it is very difficult, or even trying to make a difference is would be met with a lot of resistance. So that's why a lot of people don't even try. So despite knowing all of this, despite knowing the kind of limitations that can come with being a professional in politics, where we are surrounded by a huge milieu of different sorts of people, um, the compelling reason for me to join was, I somehow felt, I don't know, I at that point of time I felt maybe I was a bit crazy in thinking this, but in retrospect, when I look at things today, I felt like what we are going through is, it's so horrible that to bring our country back to normal, it's going to be even bigger than the freedom fight that we had against the British Raj. Um, because I'm someone who grew up, my formative years were, when UPA 1, UPA 2 were there. So under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji and the Congress government. So I I grew up with that sort of culture, where democracy is respected. It's not perfect, but the democratic institutions are respected. Their autonomy is respected. There is that constitutional propriety uh, in a government's functioning, and not this sort of uncouth, um, um, behavior from leaders who are holding such powerful positions, where they make such irresponsible, inflammatory remarks. So, looking at all of this, I felt that it was a need of the hour to save our constitution, because the erosion that I was experiencing around me um, was really heartbreaking. Like, our fundamental values of equality, fraternity, liberty, which are enshrined in our constitution, of being a secular democratic republic. I started, and furthermore, what was heartbreaking for me was that I was seeing professionals around me, educated professional people speaking the same language of the BJP, and disregarding our constitutional values and speaking about a Hindu Rashtra and the whole slew of things. Uh, that was very unnerving for me. That if somebody who is so educated, if somebody is a professional, if they can talk this way, if they can talk against the constitution and fall for the propaganda of a party like BJP, then what is the rest of the population going to do? So, yeah, this was
I
what, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just heard Bawarji speaking yesterday, Bawar Meghavanshiji, and he spoke
Hmm,
about the kind of education system we've created and how
hmm,
self-centered it makes you, and it kind of starts detaching you for everything else. And added to that,
yes.
we don't have emphasis on our constitution, understanding the constitution, which should have been done more
Hmm,
holistically. And so, given this kind of a scenario, it's only natural that we have created a set of professionals
hmm,
who are
hmm,
perhaps indifferent to whatever is happening, and
yes.
at least they assume to be indifferent. But what happens is they end up picking up wrong information, wrong facts, and start building a very different understanding of politics. And I personally do not believe that anyone is apolitical. Everyone
No, no,
will
absolutely not.
swear by
Being apolitical itself is a political statement. That
absolutely,
uh,
absolutely,
if you're choosing to be neutral in an environment which is so charged, you are making a choice to side with the oppressors. You are choosing to side with the people who are, you know, guilty of eroding the constitutional values. So for me, I swear to God, when I hear somebody they say that they're apolitical, it it really bothers me. It really bothers me. Like, how can you, as a constituent of this country, where you are paying taxes for each and everything, you are by default politically involved in the country's, affairs and everything. How can you claim to be apolitical?
absolutely, absolutely.
And
And
and I would
it's simply
like to
about
add a bit to the education bit. I wholesomely agree with you. So what was different in my case was that I come from a background of having been homeschooled with Cambridge, and I was also before that I was in a school run by Shri Ashram. So my entire schooling was very different to what uh, people generally go through in India. It was far more holistic, far more empathy based, based on the community feeling of how we are as a community. So I think that also largely contributed to why I wanted to enter politics, because I did not see myself uh, as disconnected from society. I saw myself as part of society. So,
this is another interesting aspect because when we look at constitution, it is talking about the emphasis, the underlying idea, of course, is being justice. There is probably very few constitutions in the world whose entirely founded on the idea of justice, yeah, justice for all.
yes,
And with that kind of a constitution, one should have focused on an education system which
yes,
encourages cooperation rather than competition, and very self-centered
absolutely.
competition is being pushed constantly, and which again pushes you into a framework whereby it becomes fashionable to say that you don't care about
Hmm.
what is happening, and at the same
Yeah,
time you are not caring for the wrong things. That's all you end up with.
yes,
You never end up being apolitical, but you end up being in the wrong side of the political spectrum. And
absolutely.
you also mentioned about freedom struggle. It's very interesting because the freedom struggle uh, was spearheaded by professionals. Indian freedom struggle, if you
Yes,
look at the greatest of names, were also
yes,
extremely successful professionals. And we often forget Sardar Vallabhbhai was, I'm told by lawyer friends, that he was one of the greatest lawyers. And
yeah,
interestingly, Bapu was one of the
hmm,
greatest lawyers, and not many know this. And even
hmm,
after he chose not to lie in a courtroom and to go
yeah,
convince the client and also convince the judge and win, is takes, I
hmm,
don't know, it's one of the greatest things a professional could have achieved. And Baba Sahib, I mean, he was like a, of course, a giant among the professionals, so multifaceted, and
yes.
and I don't think anybody really remembers the number of degrees this great man had.
I think
And
16, if I'm not mistaken.
thanks for bringing that. And excelled in each one, from economics to law.
Yes,
I mean, the man was like a hugely, and with that kind of a pantheon of forefathers. And how
hmm,
did we slide into a point where, it worries me
yeah,
because one of the reports which professionals had prepared showed that the engineers that we are producing today are not really, not just industry ready, perhaps not ready for anything. And this was said by one of the leading corporate houses that we do this
hmm,
campus recruitment only to pick people whom we can train,
hmm,
not because
hmm.
we know that they have done this engineering and they know something. It's really really sad state of affairs. We're just picking those whom we think we can train and make them useful in our system. So
Absolutely.
this is the state of affairs today. So how did we uh, fall into this kind of an abyss?
I would say this is a very well planned, well thought out deterioration by the BJP. Even if you look at the union budget, recently that news piece came out, and I've been personally following this through the years. That year on year, the Modi administration has cut the education budget every year. So when you have a union government that has a um very concerted effort towards reducing investment in education, uh, then we are absolutely going to see the outcome that we have seen today. There's a concerted effort towards making people mediocre. So this is nothing but promoting mediocrity and saying that, okay, as long as you are engaged in religious fervor, as long as you are with us in achieving our political agenda through religious polarization, it's okay for you to be mediocre. You should not have access to high level education, high quality education. So that's the sort of thing that's going on. And now recently, which the decision for people to by the Modi government that you can drop out in eighth, and that's okay. And they're promoting such a sort of thing. It's I mean, we belong to a country where जब खाने को नहीं था खाना, like we were actually going through food shortages at that time. Nehru ji was investing in building IITs, building colleges, building schools. So we come from that sort of background where even if we were having difficulty in providing food for our people, we were still focusing that we need to become developed as a nation, and that development can only happen when you invest in education. And Aj, like the Modi government and their followers, they call that India is a Vishwa Guru, Vishwa Guru. How have we become a world power today? We have become a world power today not because of them, but because of the efforts of our leaders, their vision for the future, and their um, apt decisions at the right time, where they have actually invested in building the human intellectual capital. So today, even if we are having a brain drain, or even through the years, if we've had a brain drain, despite the brain drain, we have done so well as a country because we have had that sort of vision that we are going to invest in the education of our people. So uh, coming back to that whole thing of I'm sorry, I missed the point. We went off on a tangent.
Very true, because one of the things that you mentioned about new education policy and in terms of
Hmm,
dropout, because it's very clear that the higher education, the
hmm,
number of Dalits, OBCs, minorities has been
hmm.
abysmally low. And let's not even go to the
Yes,
extent of what is the share of population, which is again a question mark because we don't know their current status because
hmm,
they have not done the caste census. And even
hmm,
accepting the old figures, the last survey
hmm,
figures, and if you compare
hmm.
that with the number of students from these communities, is either non-existent, particularly in private, is non-existent, and even among the elite government institutions, it is either negligibly low or simply not there. So, in
Yes,
this kind of a framework, you're incentivizing dropping out, knowing fully well
yes.
that who are the communities, the children from these communities are the ones who are going to drop out. It's obvious. It's too
Yes,
obvious. Right, it is the Dalit child
yes.
who's going to drop out, it's the OBC child who's going to drop out, it is the minorities child who's going to drop out for obvious
Hmm.
reasons because they have not been socially, economically empowered. So
Absolutely.
for me, this is extremely dangerous because you're looking at rewiring caste system, and
Yes,
and
yes.
I don't see any other reason because you're rewiring this to a
Hmm,
point where the new
hmm,
Varna system that you're
hmm.
creating will not only
Yes,
have Dalits and Shudras, you will also have minorities in them, and whom you
yes.
didn't demonize, but you didn't equally oppressive against Dalits and Shudras. while doing
Yes.
all the cosmetic lip service that you provide. But in
And
reality,
tokenism.
you are actually pushing them further into an abyss where uh,
Yes.
47 onwards we were trying to do the opposite. So this brings
Yes.
us to the question in terms of where our constitution is going to be, because the the whole idea of justice, the foundation on which this is created by our forefathers and under the leadership of Baba Sahib, is under
Hmm.
very severe threat. And I don't know to what extent these communities understand this, and to what extent professionals understand it. Coming back to uh, the whole premise, and these are extremely worrying things. And once someone understands this and cracks this, one starts taking that journey. And I'm glad someone like you did this. But tell us a little more about your actual journey as a political activist. What were
Huh.
the hurdles that you faced? What were the challenges that you had or still have?
Hmm.
Because you have only 5 years left. And what is it that gives you immense joy? I mean, there must be obviously some reasons why you're still around, right? I mean, you've
Hmm.
done all challenges and bad experiences. There must be a lot of good experience and there's my personal satisfaction. So, what is it that keeps you, grounded to being a political activist?
Okay. So, very interestingly, um, I belong to a family that has been traditionally Congress supporters. So, uh, Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji attended my parents' wedding. So, Khandani Congressy, as they would say, and I don't think it's a bad thing. Um, but when I entered politics in 2019, I joined the Aam Aadmi Party. So, um, what happened initially was that I was engaging only as a professional because I was taken on board to handle the Lok Sabha campaign for them in Goa. So there was still that fear, like, of course, I was doing political work, but I was completely in the background. I was not speaking up. I was not an activist immediately after joining politics. Because there was this still that fear inside, that I'm a professional, I'm a business owner, will I be targeted because of my views? But it was still boiling. It had already started boiling inside that I wanted to speak up about what's going wrong. So initially, I found that way of, you know, professionally contributing to politics, where I was myself not involved, but at least my work, my skill set was being involved in politics. Um, but slowly, as time went by, when the abrogation of Article 370 happened, then followed by the CA and RC movement, that is when um, I lost that fear, CA especially. For me, that day when I saw, the video of Jamia Millia being attacked, the students being attacked, that I cannot forget that night. I did not sleep the entire night. I was crying continuously, and I was so triggered, immensely triggered. I was like, "This is this what our country has come to? Like, that you cannot even democratically express your view, that you're going to be persecuted, you're going to be beaten up, you're going to be hurt physically for just saying what you're saying." So from then onwards, I started speaking up very openly on social media. Uh, some of those posts now, when I read, I'm like, holy cow! Like, I was really triggered, and suddenly people started finding resonance with what I was saying. And I was speaking about constitutional values, about constitutional fact, about how we are supposed to be as a nation versus what is happening on the ground. And then, very soon after that, in January 2020, is when I was. suddenly given the opportunity to address the largest anti-CA meet in Goa, and I was part of a panel of about six speakers, and I was the only woman who was asked to speak. And I had never given a public speech in my life before that, ever. So at the age of 28, I gave my first public speech of my entire life to a crowd of 6,000 plus people. So imagine that. And so from then onwards, my political journey, sort of I was catapulted into the public sphere. And then I started seeing that my voice matters. What I'm saying is somewhere resonating with people, and it is important for me to speak up, even if it's a small number of people who are resonating with me. It's still important for me to speak up, so that it would give others also the courage to speak up. And as they say that you add even single drops, come together to make an ocean. That's what I saw myself as, that even if I'm not this all powerful influential person, but I'm still a drop that is contributing to that ocean that needs to exist to save this country. And then of course, uh, I went from Aam Aadmi Party to Congress. um, I resigned after the Delhi riots from Aam Aadmi Party. And Congress was a huge ocean compared to Aam Aadmi Party. So when I entered, it took some time for me to find my space, to get a foothold. But what I had promised myself was that I'm I'm never going to be part of any faction. I'm never going to have a political godfather, and I'm never going to be vying for a position in order to carry out my work. So I became like water. I started flowing. Wherever I could contribute, I was contributing. So my actual work began with working with the unorganized sector in Goa. And that's how I went on to become the state chairperson for that particular department. I started it from scratch in Goa. I worked that way. And even during the COVID, even without a position or whatever office bearership, I worked with Youth Congress to man the helplines. So I just basically, wherever I could, I just fit myself into wherever I could contribute. And uh, of course, this being that way also has been very tough, because I was also, I think, somewhere trying to figure out where do I fit in this entire picture, like, because politics is dominated by, either people who have a lot of money or people who have a legacy in politics. So it's dominated by these two groups. So I did not know where do I fit in, because I'm first generation politician. I come from a professional background. Uh, and then people also kind of get scared of you because you're a professional, and somewhere they feel insecure. So how do you deal with all of those dynamics? So, uh, but yeah, I think I finally found my space when I went back to my professional skill sets and started applying them in the political sphere. So I went to Himachal. I was leading the digital campaign for Congress there. I was part of the war room. Um, and I started seeing that I can contribute very well uh, with my political, like with my professional skill sets in politics, and I can be an activist also at the same time. So it has been a lot of uh, adjustments, like trying to how we tune the radio to a certain frequency. Yeah, I've been turning the knob for quite some time to find out, okay, which frequency is going to get me to the station where I can hear it clearly. So yeah,
That's very
that's
true.
that's been my journey.
Very true, because political activism is a complex activity. It demands multiple skill sets in one. And if you don't have it, you have to develop one and so on. But somewhere, without naming anyone, name dropping, would you agree
Hmm.
that in the last decade or so, we have also spawning a whole lot of pseudo secular, pseudo constitutionalists, and very pseudo in their outlook. I would also, without any hesitation, add a very selfishly self-centered parties with no regard for the
uh,
constitution, with no regard for the country, with no, because we've seen this when abrogation of 370, and you mentioned the Delhi riots, and where they stood,
mm,
and students being
mm,
attacked
mm.
inside the campus. And where are these people? I mean, they're nowhere to be seen. And when we are
Yes.
rights being violated and
Mm,
legislation being brought in to actually
mm.
suffocate people and trample their rights. So where are these forces? And but they hold some middle class fancy for some reason. Sorry for being very classist, but that's where I see their influence, because somewhere they're seen as an alternative, but alternative to what I have
Mm,
no idea. And of course, without a doubt, mainstream politics is in a crisis. And for
mm, mm.
me, issues like corruption are part of that crisis. And to see
Yes.
these in isolation itself was one of the biggest travesties of justice. And they cannot be seen in isolation, but it was deliberately provided as though someone is going to provide a very quote unquote somehow overnight clean administration, and with
No
no understanding of where corruption comes from, that corruption is a symptom of a larger problem. Without
problem.
addressing the larger
Yes.
problem, it's like treating the fever without actually evaluating why is that
Why is it
fever
taking
is
place?
up. Yeah, because the fever is indicating larger problem unless you have actually examined and evaluated and investigated. You wouldn't know it. And corruption was treated in this way, and sadly, uh, including you, many people felt that this was that
Yes.
one can actually go into this and do something and understand that point
Hmm, hmm.
till we realize that this is not the case. Now
No.
that brings us to the next part. Tell us
Hmm.
what is your vision for yourself? Because frankly speaking, I don't know what if one can ever separate the personal from political, and
No.
not something again a great myth. So you tell me now, as a professional, as an activist, as a youngster, uh, what is it that you're looking forward to now that you completed 5 years? Obviously, you have a long way. You have many
Yes.
5 years, many decades to go into this
Ah.
journey. So, what's the vision?
So I left a part of your question unanswered before, but I would like to start with that since you asked me this now. Um, so despite the challenges that I have gone through, the last 5 years have also been enormously joyous for me. Uh, if I sit today talking to you, and why am I continuing to be in politics despite so much that has happened with me? Like, for example, I've had a death threat from RSS. I have been disrobed in public by the police. So I've also personally, experienced the persecution that takes place. So why am I still in politics? Is because it brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction. When people reach out to you, when they see you as a beacon of hope. Today, when there is some problem or the other, some people reach out to me and they say that, what should we do about this? Okay, how can we speak up about this? That gives me a lot of satisfaction. And so going forward, um, I intend to continue what I'm doing. Hopefully, have it grow into a much larger exercise. Um, educate people on our constitutional values, and make them understand that respecting the constitution is not a matter of choice. It should be a default. That you know if you're going to say that are we a secular country, is it a choice? No. It is the very, and not just because of the document that the Constitution is. It is also very much a part of our ethos as a country. It's part of our spirit, our soul as a country. Uh, even when Mughals were in power, or even the British when they were in power, when that time also, when the supposed majoritarian thing, the Hindus were not wiped out. So this whole Hindu khatre mein hai thing is very fake thing. And so going forward, in the future, of course, I do want to see myself in parliament. I want to become a parliamentarian, but I know there is still a ways to go uh, to that, and there's so much of work to do before I get to that stage. Um, Especially at the grassroots level, I'm extremely interested in civic society work, in especially getting professionals, educated people, uh, and getting them on board and interested in politics and to engage. Basically, as I said, politics is so prohibitive. People get so fed up or scared of it as a field. People don't even want to engage. So that's something I want to change. Um, because I've gone through that change myself, and I see that it is so satisfying when you get to see the result, the impact of your work, your actions, your interactions with people. So yeah, that's my vision going forward.
And wish you the very best, and may you uh, succeed in everything that you've been planning, and may your tribe grow. And I hope many more young professionals join us in this journey,
Yes,
and because there is so much to learn from each other and so much to actually contribute in terms of whatever we can, because every day we go to bed, we can at least say, okay, I did this today, so
yes.
that is something that needs to happen every day. Thank you so much for
Yes.
having me and giving me this opportunity, and wish you the very best.
No, no. But before we go, Ashok ji, I would like to um, say that it is thanks to people like you in the party system that people like me have hope, that we get a sense of understanding and belonging, and that is something that we need to grow even further within the party, or even in society at large, um, that we can handhold each other and take each other forward in our journeys and whatever that we are doing. So I'm extremely grateful to you for uh, you know we've known each other for the past, I think, 3+ years uh, through social media, and then we finally met. So really, you are somebody who's so inspiring, and I've learned so much from your effort with Edulu Karnataka, and your constant speaking up about issues that matter. Um, I really respect where you come from. The constitutional values that you seek to protect and preserve. So really, it's also my honor that you decided to have this conversation with me today.
I'm,
Uh,
I'm again, I'm again a very simple karyakarta, and but the tradition to which I belong, I strongly believe is quintessentially very Indian, very community centric, and where we hold each other's hands, and we don't look at anyone as a competitor, but as a collaborator, a partner, as someone,
yes.
you want to be part of them, and also look forward to their support, and nurture each other. And somewhere down, that culture has got vitiated in the mainstream politics, and that's what needs to come back. If healthy
Yes.
politics needs to, because that's where our constitution is also founded. And I find that very offensive when some people talk about this being Western and so on, because they have no idea. They are quintessentially a very Indian idea. Indian constitution is entirely
Huh.
Indian idea.
Yeah.
Of course, it has taken good things from our tradition, our pluralistic tradition. It hasn't picked the wrong things that are being pushed today. You know, so of course it
Yes.
didn't pick those. It didn't pick Varnashram Dharma and whatever the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
It picked the good things from our tradition. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, once again, all the very best, and thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for having me once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
So, for all the viewers who watched this interview today, if you are somewhere inspired by what we've spoken about, and somewhere you feel a spark within you that now is the time to speak up, we urge you and we welcome you to come and connect with us, be a part of this movement where you can contribute towards politics and make a space, have a respectable space in politics. Um, and this is what is required for our country at the moment. Because, and I wanted to conclude with this is that uh, I hope I'm not overreaching Ashokji by saying this, but uh, I still believe that it is a second independence struggle for us at the moment. And it is somewhere even more difficult because we are fighting against our own uh, people. Because with the British Raj, they were not from here. So there was still that disconnect, you know. But when you're fighting against your own people, it's also very heartbreaking at a very deep level. But you know that it is something that needs to get done because it's a matter of survival. It is a matter of saving our country. So, to each and everyone who's watching today, who's watched the entire interview, please share, like, comment, and get in touch with us if you're interested. And we would be most happy to handhold you and welcome you with open arms into politics.
Absolutely. It's a struggle to save the soul.
Yes, it is. It is. Thank you so much, Ashok Ji, and
Thank
wishing you a
you.
lovely day ahead.